Hi there, and welcome to this video on GCSE Biology for the AQA Specification, focusing on the topic of principles of organisation. I'm Shumina from StudyMind, where we help you revise GCSE Biology with our helpful video tutorials, tailored to your subject, your specification, and to you. If you're new here, make sure you click the subscribe button. Whilst you are watching, please leave any comments below if you're unsure about anything, and let us know if it's your first time watching our videos so we can send you our free revision materials. We also have helpful timestamps below for each part of the video to help guide you through the specification. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to tutorial 1 of 1 on principles of organisation. So, in today's tutorial we're going to be having a look at how our human body is made up. So we're going to work from the cellular level right through up to tissues, to organs and finally to organ systems. So first of all, let's start by looking at the basic building blocks of our body. And those are cells. So cells develop as the organism does, and they are often adapted to perform a specific function. So one particular type of cell, or many particular type of specialised cell, can come together to form a tissue. So a tissue is just many cells that come together. And these many cells are specialised. They come together to form the tissue, which is a specialised unit of cells. And then tissues can come together to make an organ. And individual organs work together to make an organ system. So you can see that it's a hierarchy. We go from smallest right through to largest. And it's as simple as that. So we start off with our building blocks, the cells. Many specialised cells come together to form a tissue. Many specialised tissue sections come together to form an organ. And organs with varying functions come together to form an organ system. So let's look at some examples of this. So here we have our epithelial cell, which is your basic specialised cell. These epithelial cells come together to form epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue groups together to form the lungs, and the lungs form part of the respiratory system. Now let's look at a plant example. So the root hair cell is our specialised cell. The root tissue is many root hair cells that come together. The root tissue itself forms the root, and the root forms part of the transport system. So again, we see this hierarchy going from small over here to large over here. So, each living organism is made from many cells that are being put together. So basically, cells are the basic building blocks of all living organisms. If we want to work down right to the basic part of our body that forms everything else, we would call that the cell. So cells are specialised and differentiated, and they are adapted to their specific function. And if you remember back in session 1.1.3 called Cell Specialisation, we had a look at the varying different types of specialised cell, and in particular we contrasted nerve cells, muscle cells and sperm. And so perhaps go back and watch that just to remind yourself that cells are specialised for different functions. So now let's take a closer look at tissues. So the same type of specialised cell with similar structures and functions can come together to form a tissue. So for example here we can see many cardiac cells making up cardiac tissue. So if I just try and make this a bit clearer for you, this would be a cardiac cell here. I'm just outlining it.
And you can see that many come together to form the cardiac tissue. And I can tell these are individual cell units because I can, oopsie daisy, because I can see their nuclei here. And so these cardiac cells all join together to form cardiac tissue. Oh, and by the way, cardiac is the name, the stem that we use to refer to heart-related structures. So cardiac cells are the muscle cells that we find in heart. And these cardiac cells come together to form the cardiac tissue, and they then work together to contract and push blood out of the heart into the circulatory system. So let's try and name some examples of tissues. So try and think of a few in your head. Perhaps pause the video at this point and write a few down, and let's see whether you come up with any of the same ones. So we've already looked at cardiac tissue. We can also talk about epithelial tissue and nervous tissue. Now, can you think of any of the functions of each of these tissues? Perhaps pause the video at this point and have a little brainstorm, and we'll go over it on the next slide. So, as we covered previously, cardiac cells contract to move blood between the chambers of the heart and out into the blood vessels, out into the body. So that's the function of cardiac tissue. Epithelial tissue, on the other hand, covers certain areas of the body, providing protection. And nervous tissue is formed of nerve cells, which form networks and which carry nervous information from one end of the body to the other in order to drive reflexes, movement, and conscious actions. So now let's take a look at organs. So different types of tissues come together to make an organ. So the heart is an example of an organ, and it's made from varying different types of tissue. So on the last few slides, we had a look at cardiac cells forming cardiac tissue. So that would refer to the muscular unit of the heart. But there's also the epithelial tissues that come together, and the nervous tissues and the connective tissues. So collectively, all these different types of tissue come together to form the organ. So that's your key definition here. Different types of tissues come together to make an organ. So let's think of some examples of organs. Well, these are the few that we came up with. So the heart and the lungs. So can you think of any related functions to these organs? Well, as we said, the heart is made up of cardiac tissue, and the function of the heart is to pump oxygenated blood around the body. The lungs are made up of pulmonary tissue, and the function of the lungs are gas exchange, so it's where we take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide. So organs are organised into organ systems which work together to form organisms. So multiple different organs form organ systems. So for example, the heart and the blood vessels are two individual organs, but they come together to form a system, which we refer to as the circulatory system. And this pumps blood around the body and carries oxygen to organs. So the circulatory system is reliant on all its individual component organs. So the heart on its own would not form a very effective circulatory system. And blood vessels on their own would not form an effective circulatory system because both the heart and the blood vessels rely on each other in order to form an intact circulatory system. So can you name any examples of organ systems? Well, these are the various different types of organ systems that we have in our human body. But we're not going to be too mean here, and we're just going to talk about two. So respiratory system and the digestive system. So the digestive system contains many organs, including the stomach, intestines, liver, pancreas, and rectum. So these are all different organ units. The digestive system itself all of these organs come together to break down food, which is then absorbed into the bloodstream in order to provide us with our vital nutrients. Similarly, the respiratory system includes many different organs: the nose, the trachea, the larynx, the pharynx, the lungs, the bronchi, the alveoli. So remember, these are all different organs, all formed of their own specialised tissues, which are all formed of their own specialised cells. So, it's really, really important here that you can distinguish between what is an organ, a system, and a tissue, and also a cell. And we have defined this on these slides in this tutorial, so if I were you, I'd go back and make a list of these 4 definitions and make sure that you can distinguish between them. And remember, think of it as a hierarchy. The cells are the smallest unit, and then we move up to tissues, then to organs, then to organ systems. And that's a really coherent, logical way of thinking about it, and so that should make memorisation a lot easier. So well done for today. We've covered a lot of definitions, so do go back and re-watch and pause the video where necessary.
Thanks for watching this free video from StudyMind. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe to catch our newest videos by clicking below, and leave a comment on a topic you'd like a video on. Click here to watch more videos in our series for GCSE Biology, or visit our website studymind.co.uk for free past paper compilations by topic and specification.